Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he looked at the data screen. The numbers made no sense. 3 heat signals moving together, but they were too small to be adult Kithara predators, too big to be anything else on this planet. "Commander Vexthol, I need to check something in Sector 7, Jake said into his radio. The alien commander's voice came back sharp and fast. "Negative, Dr. Morrison. That area is off limits. Kithara territory begins 2 kilometers from that point." Jake looked at the screen again. The 3 signals had not moved for 6 hours. That was wrong. Kythera never stayed still that long unless something was very bad. "Sir, I think there might be cubs in trouble out there." "Cubs?" Vexthol's voice went higher. "Morrison, you will not approach Kithara territory. That is a direct order. Those creatures kill everything they see." Jake turned off his radio. He had been studying dangerous animals his whole life. Before he became a scientist, he spent 10 years as a soldier. He knew when something was hurt and needed help. He grabbed his field kit and walked to the station exit. The other researchers looked up from their work. "Where are you going?" asked Dr. Lisa Harper, the new marine biologist who had arrived last week. "To check on something," Jake said. He did not want to lie, but he also did not want to start an argument. "The commander said no one goes outside alone," Lisa said. Jake stopped at the door. Sometimes rules need to be broken. The walk to Sector 7 took 30 minutes. Jake moved slowly and kept his eyes open. This planet had many dangerous animals, and the Kithara were just the biggest ones. As he got closer to the heat signals, he heard something that made his heart race. Crying. Not human crying, but the sound of young animals in pain and fear. Jake climbed over a fallen tree and saw them. 3 Kithara cubs, each one about 4 feet tall. Their black fur was dirty, and they looked thin. One had a cut on its leg that was bleeding. Adult Kithara were 8 feet tall with claws that could cut through metal. These cubs were big enough to hurt him, but they were still babies. The cubs saw Jake and backed against a rock wall. They opened their mouths and showed their sharp teeth. They made deep growling sounds that meant, "Stay away or we will fight." Jake sat down on the ground 20 feet away from them. He did not move closer. He just sat and waited. Back at the station, alarms were going off. Commander Vexthol was moving around the control room like a crazy person. "Where is Morrison?" he yelled at the other researchers. "He went outside," Lisa said. "About an hour ago." Vexthol's blue skin turned pale. "Track his suit signal, now!" The tracking system showed Jake was in Sector 7, right in the middle of Kithara territory. "He is dead," Vexthol said. "We need to prepare for evacuation. If he made the Kithara angry, they will come for us next." Meanwhile, Jake sat on the ground and watched the cubs. They had stopped growling, but they still looked scared. The injured one was lying down now. It needed help soon, or it would die. Jake took a water bottle from his pack. He opened it and put it on the ground between him and the cubs. Then he moved back to where he was sitting. The cubs looked at the water. They were very thirsty, but they were afraid to get close to Jake. One cub, braver than the others, moved forward slowly. It kept its eyes on Jake while it sniffed the water bottle. Then it started drinking fast. The other 2 cubs saw their friend drinking and came closer. Soon, all 3 were sharing the water. When they finished drinking, they looked at Jake. They were not growling anymore. Jake took out a food packet. It was emergency rations that tasted terrible, but it had protein and nutrients. He tore it open and put small pieces on the ground. The cubs came closer. They ate the food quickly. They had not eaten in days. As the cubs ate, Jake slowly moved closer. When he was 10 feet away, one cub looked up and made a soft sound. Not a growl this time. Something different. Jake reached into his pack and pulled out his medical kit. The injured cub needed treatment or infection would kill it. "Easy," Jake said in a quiet voice. "I want to help you." He moved very slowly toward the injured cub. The other 2 moved to protect their friend, but they did not attack. They just watched Jake carefully. Jake knelt down next to the injured cub. The animal was weak from blood loss. Its leg had a deep cut that needed to be cleaned and bandaged. The cub looked at Jake with large yellow eyes. There was intelligence there, and trust. Jake cleaned the wound with antiseptic. The cub made small sounds of pain but did not try to bite him. The other two cubs watched everything Jake did. After he bandaged the wound, Jake sat back. All three cubs were looking at him. The injured one tried to stand up. It was wobbly, but the bandage was holding. Jake's radio came alive with static. "Morrison! Morrison, respond immediately!" It was Vex Thull. Jake turned on his radio. "I'm here, Commander. What is your status? Are you injured? Are you under attack?" Jake looked at the three cubs. They had moved closer to him. The biggest one was now only 5 feet away. "I'm fine, sir. I found 3 Kythera cubs. They were abandoned and hurt. I gave them first aid." There was silence on the radio for a long time. "Morrison, you need to leave that area immediately. Those creatures will kill you when they get bigger." "I don't think so, sir," Jake said. "They're following me back to the station." "What?" Jake stood up slowly. The cubs stood up too. When Jake took a step toward the station, all 3 cubs walked with him. "They've bonded with me, Commander." "They think I'm part of their pack now." The radio exploded with alien voices all talking at once. Jake turned down the volume and kept walking. The cubs stayed close to him, like they were protecting him from danger. When Jake reached the station, 20 alien researchers were standing behind the security barrier with weapons ready. Commander Vex Thull was shouting orders that nobody could understand because everyone was talking at the same time. Jake walked up to the barrier with 3 deadly predators following him like pet dogs. He smiled at the terrified aliens. "Commander, I'd like to request permission to bring my friends inside. They need food and medical attention." Vex Thull stared at Jake and the cubs. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. The cubs sat down next to Jake and waited for orders, just like soldiers. 3 months had passed since Jake brought the cubs to the research station. The cubs were now as big as wolves and getting bigger every day. Jake had named them Rex, Luna, and Scout. Rex was the brave one who had drunk the water first. Luna was the injured one, now fully healed. Scout was the smallest, but also the smartest. Commander Vex Thull walked into the observation room where Dr. Lisa Harper was recording data about the cubs. The alien commander looked tired. He had not been sleeping well since the cubs arrived. "Any new incidents?" Vex Thull asked. Lisa looked at her notes. "Scout tried to bite Engineer Chen when he got too close to Jake yesterday. Rex knocked down Dr. Franklin when Franklin raised his voice at Jake during the meeting. Luna destroyed the food dispenser when it made loud noises near Jake's sleeping quarters." Vex Thull sat down heavily in a chair. "They are becoming more dangerous every day. Morrison has created a problem that will kill us all." "Actually," Lisa said, "I think Jake has discovered something amazing." Through the window, they could see Jake in the exercise yard with the 3 cubs. He was teaching them commands using hand signals. When Jake pointed left, all 3 cubs moved left. When he held up his hand, they stopped. When he crouched down, they all crouched down too. "Look at that coordination," Lisa said. "They respond to him faster than any military unit I've ever seen." "They are predators," Vex Thull said. "When they reach full size, their instincts will take over. They will kill Morrison and then hunt down everyone else on this station." Lisa shook her head. "I don't think so. I've been studying their behavior for 3 months. They don't see Jake as prey or as another predator. They see him as family." Outside, Jake was playing a game with the cubs. He would hide behind equipment and the cubs would try to find him. When they found him, they would make happy sounds and rub against him like giant cats. "This afternoon, Jake is taking them outside the station perimeter," Lisa said. "There have been reports of adult Kythera in the area. We'll see how strong their bond really is." Vex Thull's skin turned pale blue. That is suicide. Adult Cathara will kill the cubs for being with a human. Or they might accept Jake as part of the pack, Lisa said. Humans have a gift for making friends with dangerous animals. Our history is full of stories about people bonding with wolves, bears, even sharks. This is different, Vexthul said. Cathara are intelligent. They have their own culture, their own rules. Humans are not part of that. That afternoon, Jake put on his field gear and walked to the station exit. Rex, Luna, and Scout walked beside him. The cubs were now 5 feet tall, and their claws had grown longer and sharper. Lisa and Vexthul watched from the observation deck as Jake and the cubs walked into the forest. Most of the other researchers had locked themselves in their rooms. They were sure Jake would not come back alive. Motion sensors are picking up adult Cathara 2 kilometers east, the station computer announced. They're moving toward Jake's position, Lisa said. Jake walked through the forest with confident steps. The cubs stayed close to him, but they were alert. Their ears were up and their noses were testing the air. After 30 minutes of walking, Jake heard it. The deep rumbling sound that adult Cathara made when they were hunting. The sound was coming from ahead of them. Rex, Luna, and Scout heard it too. They moved closer to Jake and made soft warning sounds. Easy, Jake said. Stay calm. Let them come to us. 3 adult Cathara came out of the trees. Each one was 8 feet tall with muscles like steel cables. Their black fur was marked with scars from battles. Their yellow eyes focused on Jake. The cubs moved in front of Jake. They did not attack the adults, but they made it clear that they were protecting him. The largest adult, a female with a torn ear, walked forward slowly. She looked at Jake for a long time. Then she looked at the cubs. She could smell Jake's scent on them. She could see that they were healthy and well-fed. The adult made a questioning sound. Luna answered with a series of short growls that seemed to explain everything. Back at the station, the research team was watching through the security cameras that Jake carried. What are they saying to each other? Vexthul asked. I think Luna is telling the adults that Jake is their pack leader, Lisa said. Look at their body language. The adult Cathara with the torn ear walked up to Jake. She was close enough to kill him with one swipe of her claws. Instead, she sniffed him carefully. Jake stood perfectly still. He looked directly into the adult's yellow eyes and did not show fear. The adult made a decision. She stepped back and made a long, low sound. The other adults relaxed. The cubs made happy sounds and rubbed against Jake. I think he just got adopted by the whole pack, Lisa whispered. Jake spent 2 hours with the adult Cathara. They showed him their territory and their hunting grounds. The cubs translated between Jake and the adults when communication was needed. When Jake returned to the station, he was not alone. The 3 adults followed him to the perimeter fence and sat down. They did not leave. They just watched the station. They're guarding us, Jake told the research team. As long as Rex, Luna, and Scout are here, we're under the protection of the pack. Vexthul could not believe what he was seeing. This goes against everything we know about Cathara behavior. Maybe we don't know as much as we thought, Jake said. These animals are intelligent enough to understand loyalty and friendship. They just needed someone to show them that not all aliens are enemies. That night, Jake slept in his quarters with Rex, Luna, and Scout on the floor beside his bed. Outside, the adult Cathara patrolled the area around the station. For the first time since arriving on this planet, the research team felt completely safe from the dangerous wildlife. Lisa worked late into the night, writing her report about Jake's success with the cubs. She was documenting something that had never happened before in galactic history. Computer, send a message to Galactic Research Command, she said. Subject, breakthrough in Cathara behavioral studies. We have achieved peaceful contact with apex predators through human pack bonding techniques. She paused and looked out the window at the adult Cathara keeping watch. Recommend immediate expansion of human participation in dangerous species research programs. The next morning, Jake woke up to find Scout licking his face and Rex bringing him a piece of fresh meat from the night's hunt. Luna was sitting by the door, watching for any threats. Jake smiled and petted each of the cubs. "Good morning, family." Outside, the adult Kithara were still there. They had brought their own cubs to meet Jake's three. The station was now surrounded by an entire pack of the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and they were all waiting for Jake to come outside and play. Rex, Luna, and Scout were now 6 feet tall and still growing. They had been with Jake for 8 months, and their bond had grown stronger every day. The research station had become a strange place where deadly predators lived peacefully with alien scientists. But that peace was about to be tested. Chief Engineer Ross Blake was working on the station's power generator when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his tools and ran to the control room where Jake and Lisa were staring at the sensor readings. "What's happening?" Ross asked. "Big trouble," Jake said. "The alpha male of the largest Kithara pack is coming this way. The computer identifies him as the one we've been calling Titan." Lisa pulled up the files on Titan. The images showed a massive Kithara, over 9 feet tall, with scars covering his entire body. He was the dominant predator in this region and had killed dozens of other Kithara who challenged his authority. "He's challenging your position," Lisa said. "According to our research, when an alpha approaches another alpha's territory, it means a fight to the death." Jake looked through the window at Rex, Luna, and Scout. They were pacing nervously in the yard, sensing the approaching danger. "I'm not an alpha," Jake said. "I'm just their friend." "Try telling Titan that," Ross said. "The sensors show he'll be here in 2 hours." Commander Vexthul's voice came over the communications system. "All personnel prepare for immediate evacuation. We cannot remain here during an alpha challenge." "No," Jake said into his radio. "If I run away, Rex, Luna, and Scout will lose their position in the pack. They'll be killed or driven out." "Morrison, this is not your fight," Vexthul said. "You are human. You cannot challenge a Kithara Alpha." Jake looked at his 3 friends through the window. Rex was the size of a small horse now, with claws that could tear through steel. Luna had become incredibly fast, able to run 60 miles per hour through the forest. Scout was the smartest, able to solve problems that amazed the research team. But they were still his cubs. They trusted him to protect them. "I won't abandon them," Jake said. Lisa and Ross stayed with Jake while the other researchers prepared to evacuate. They helped him study everything they knew about Kithara challenge rituals. "Traditionally, the challenger and the alpha fight until one is dead," Lisa read from the files. "But there are exceptions. If the alpha proves his worth through intelligence instead of strength, the challenger might accept his dominance without fighting." "How do I prove intelligence to a 9-foot killing machine?" Jake asked. Ross was looking at different data. "I've been studying the local wildlife. There's a species of prey animals called grounders that live in the deep caves. They're incredibly dangerous to hunt because they fight in groups and they're almost impossible to catch." "So?" Jake asked. "So no Kithara has ever successfully hunted grounders. Not even Titan. But with the right coordination and planning, it might be possible." An idea began forming in Jake's mind. "How much time do we have?" 1 hour, Lisa said. Jake walked outside to meet Rex, Luna, and Scout. The cubs sensed his determination and gathered around him. "We need to do something difficult," Jake said to them. He knew they didn't understand his words, but they understood his tone and his body language. "We need to work together better than we ever have before." For the next hour, Jake worked with his cubs on a complex hunting strategy. Using hand signals, he taught them to coordinate their movements, to attack from different angles, and to work as a perfect team. When Titan arrived, he was not alone. He brought his own pack of 6 adult Kithara, all battle-tested veterans. They surrounded the research station and waited. Titan walked into the open area in front of the station. He was huge, even bigger than the files had indicated. His presence made the air feel heavy and dangerous. Jake walked out to meet him with Rex, Luna, and Scout at his side. The cubs were nervous, but they trusted Jake completely. Titan roared a challenge that shook the windows of the research station. It was a sound that meant, "Fight me or submit." Jake did something that surprised everyone watching. He roared back. It was not a perfect Kythera roar, but it was close enough. Jake's message was clear. "I am not afraid of you." Titan tilted his massive head, confused. This small alien was challenging him? Jake pointed toward the cave system where the grounders lived. Then he made the hunting signals he had taught his cubs. Titan understood. The human was proposing a different kind of challenge. Not a fight, but a test of hunting skill. For 20 minutes, the two alphas stared at each other. Titan's pack and Jake's cubs waited in tense silence. Finally, Titan made a decision. He roared once, accepting the challenge. The hunt for the grounders was the most dangerous thing Jake had ever done. The cave system was dark and full of sharp rocks. The grounders were as big as bears, but twice as fast, with teeth like razors. Titan and his pack tried the traditional Kythera hunting method, direct attack with overwhelming force. The grounders fought back hard, injuring 2 of Titan's pack members before escaping deeper into the caves. Then it was Jake's turn. He led Rex, Luna, and Scout into the caves using a completely different strategy. Instead of attacking directly, Jake used Scout's intelligence to track the grounders' movements. He used Luna's speed to herd them toward Rex's position. He used Rex's strength to block their escape routes. Working together with perfect coordination, they drove 3 grounders into a dead-end cave where Jake was waiting with a net Ross had quickly made from station materials. The grounders were trapped without a single injury to Jake's team. When they emerged from the caves, Titan and his pack were waiting. Jake walked up to the massive alpha and offered him the captured prey. Titan looked at the grounders, then at Jake's uninjured cubs, then at Jake himself. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Titan made a sound Jake had never heard before. It was not a roar or a growl. It was something like approval. Titan turned to his own pack and made a series of complex sounds. Jake's translator couldn't understand all of it, but the meaning was clear. This human had proven his worth. The challenge was over. Titan had accepted Jake as a legitimate leader. Back at the research station, the alien researchers came out of hiding to witness something unprecedented. 2 alpha predators, 1 human, and 1 Kythera, standing side by side. "I can't believe what I just saw," Vexthal said. Jake was scratching Rex behind the ears while Luna and Scout shared the food from their successful hunt. Titan's pack had joined them, and all the Kythera were treating Jake with the respect due to an equal. "Humans don't dominate through strength," Jake explained to the watching researchers. "We lead through cooperation and intelligence. These animals understand that now." Ross shook his head in amazement. "You just became the first non-Kythera pack leader in galactic history." "No," Jake said, watching as Rex playfully wrestled with one of Titan's cubs. "I became something better. I became their friend." That night, Jake slept surrounded by a dozen Kythera of all ages. They had accepted him completely into their world. And somewhere in Galactic Command, emergency meetings were being held about what this development might mean for the future of human-alien relations. The message from Galactic Command arrived 3 weeks after Jake's challenge with Titan. Commander Vexthal read it twice before calling an emergency meeting. "Admiral Patricia Cross and her fleet will arrive tomorrow," he announced to the research team. "They are bringing Director Kelnash from the Galactic Consortium Oversight Committee." Jake was sitting with Rex, Luna, and Scout in the meeting room. The cubs were now 7 feet tall and fully grown. They had become his constant companions, following him everywhere and protecting him from any perceived threats. "Why is the Oversight Committee coming here?" Lisa asked. Vexthal looked uncomfortable. "The official reason is to study your success with the Kythera. The unofficial reason is that the consortium is worried about humans having this ability." Ross frowned. "Worried about what?" "Think about it. Vexthul said. If humans can bond with apex predators that no other species can even approach, what does that mean for galactic security? What if humans could build armies of these creatures? Jake felt Rex shift beside him. The big predator was sensing the tension in the room and didn't like it. The Cathara aren't weapons, Jake said. They're intelligent beings with their own culture and decisions. I can't make them do anything they don't want to do. Try explaining that to the consortium, Vexthul said. Some members believe humans should be restricted from working with dangerous species. The next day, 12 military ships appeared in the sky above the research station. Admiral Cross landed with a security team of 50 soldiers and Director Kelnash, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 eyes, who represented the interests of 20 different species. Jake met them at the landing pad with Rex, Luna, and Scout walking beside him. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons when they saw the Cathara. "Stand down," Admiral Cross ordered. She was a middle-aged woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She had read all the reports about Jake's work, but seeing it in person was different. Director Kelnash stared at the 3 predators with obvious fear. "Dr. Morrison, I order you to secure those creatures immediately." Rex, Luna, and Scout heard the hostile tone in the director's voice and moved closer to Jake. They made low warning sounds that meant, "Back away from our pack leader." "They're not secured because they don't need to be," Jake said. "They're my friends and partners. They only become dangerous when someone threatens me." "Unacceptable," Kelnash said. "These creatures must be contained for everyone's safety." Admiral Cross held up a hand. "Director, let me handle this. Dr. Morrison, I need to understand what you've accomplished here. Show me how you work with them." For the next hour, Jake demonstrated the incredible bond he had developed with Rex, Luna, and Scout. The cubs followed complex commands, solved problems together, and showed intelligence that amazed even the Admiral. "They're not just following orders," Admiral Cross observed. "They're making decisions and communicating with you." "Exactly," Jake said. "This isn't about control or domination. It's about mutual respect and cooperation." Director Kelnash was not impressed. "This proves my point. Humans have developed a dangerous ability to influence apex predators. This could destabilize the entire galactic balance of power." That afternoon, Kelnash ordered his security team to separate Jake from the cubs for safety evaluation. The team moved in with restraint weapons and containment devices. The reaction was immediate and violent. Rex, Luna, and Scout exploded into action. They moved faster than the security team could track, using coordinated attacks that Jake had never taught them. Within seconds, 3 soldiers were unconscious, and the rest were backed against the station wall with snarling predators blocking their escape. "Stop!" Jake shouted. The cubs froze instantly, but they stayed between Jake and the security team. Their message was clear: hurt our pack leader and die. "You see," Kelnash said from behind the safety of the station wall, "they are weapons, dangerous weapons that could tear apart any military force." Admiral Cross stepped forward slowly. She looked at the cubs, then at Jake, then at the terrified security team. "Dr. Morrison, can you call them off?" "They're not attacking," Jake said. "They're defending. There's a difference." Jake walked over to Rex, Luna, and Scout and placed a hand on each of their heads. The cubs relaxed but kept watching the security team. "These animals responded to protect someone they care about," Admiral Cross said. "That's not weapon behavior, that's family behavior." Director Kelnash disagreed. "Admiral, I must insist that Dr. Morrison be separated from these creatures immediately. The consortium cannot allow humans to continue this kind of research." "The hell you will." Everyone turned to see Titan and his pack emerging from the forest. The massive Alpha had heard the conflict and come to investigate. Behind him were 20 adult Cathara, all looking ready for battle. The security team raised their weapons, but Admiral Cross ordered them to stand down. She understood that shooting would only make things worse. Titan walked up to Jake and made questioning sounds. Rex, Luna, and Scout explained what had happened using the complex Kythera communication system. After listening to his adopted cubs, Titan looked at Director Kelnash with cold, yellow eyes. The message was unmistakable. These humans are under our protection. Admiral, Jake said quietly, I think you need to understand something. The Kythera chose me as much as I chose them. This isn't about human abilities. It's about recognizing that intelligence and loyalty exist in many forms. Admiral Cross spent 3 days studying Jake's work. She interviewed every researcher on the station, reviewed all the data, and observed the interactions between Jake and the Kythera pack. On the final day, she made her decision. Director Kelnash, she said during the final meeting, I'm recommending that Dr. Morrison's research be expanded, not restricted. What he's accomplished here could revolutionize how we explore dangerous planets and establish colonies in hostile environments. The consortium will not approve this, Kelnash said. Then the consortium will miss an opportunity to learn something amazing, Admiral Cross replied. Humans have shown they can build bridges to species that other races consider impossible to approach. That's not a threat. That's a gift. That night, as the consortium ships prepared to leave, Admiral Cross had a private meeting with Jake. The director is right about one thing, she said. This ability you humans have will change everything. Some species will see it as a threat. What do you think? Jake asked. Admiral Cross looked out the window at Rex, Luna, and Scout playing with Titan's cubs in the moonlight. I think the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place, she said, and I think humans are going to play a bigger role in it than anyone expected. After the ships left, Jake walked outside to join his extended pack. Rex, Luna, and Scout ran up to him, happy that the strangers were gone and life could return to normal. But Jake knew that normal was about to change. The galaxy was watching now, and humans would have to prove they could be trusted with the gift they had discovered. As he scratched Titan's massive head, Jake smiled. They would prove it, one friendship at a time. 2 years had passed since Admiral Cross left the research station. What had once been a small outpost studying dangerous wildlife had grown into Haven's Rest, the first human Kythera colony in galactic history. Jake stood on the observation deck of the new settlement, watching the morning activities below. Rex, Luna, and Scout were now fully mature, each weighing over 800 pounds with claws that could slice through stone. They were leading hunting parties with other Kythera, bringing back food for both the human colonists and their pack families. The morning reports, Jake, said Dr. Kevin Walsh, the colony's new administrator. He had arrived 6 months ago with the second wave of human settlers. Jake took the datapad and smiled at what he read. Dr. Rita Gonzalez had successfully bonded with a family of sky reapers, the flying predators that lived in the mountain peaks. Engineer Tony Barrett had earned the trust of tunnel hunters called deep crawlers, massive underground predators that helped him locate mineral deposits. Marine biologist Dr. Carol Price was working with aquatic apex predators in the coastal regions. 57 humans now living and working with various predator species, Jake said. 0 serious injuries, 0 conflicts between species. The galactic community is starting to take notice, Kevin said. We've had delegations from 12 different species asking to study our methods. Commander Vex Thule, now permanently assigned to Haven's Rest, approached them with his own report. The Zenthari scientist had become one of the colony's strongest supporters after witnessing the success firsthand. The Corvin Science Council has officially requested permission to send researchers here, Vex Thule said. They want to understand how humans achieve what they call impossible species integration. Through the window, they watched a group of human children playing with young Kythera cubs. The children had been born on Haven's Rest and had grown up considering the predators to be normal parts of life. One little girl named Amy was teaching a cub how to stack blocks, while the cub was teaching her how to track scents. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real," Vexithul said. "When I first met you, Jake, I was certain you would be killed within days." "What changed your mind?" Jake asked. "Watching Rex protect that little human boy from the storm last month," Vexthul replied. "When young Charlie got lost in the forest during the rain, Rex found him and carried him home on his back. A creature that my people considered a mindless killer had risked his own life to save a child from a different species." Lisa Harper approached the group with exciting news. She had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Research and was documenting everything for the galactic scientific community. "I just received word from Earth," she said. "The Human Colonial Administration wants to establish 10 more colonies based on our model. They're calling it the Haven Project." "How does that make you feel?" Kevin asked Jake. Jake looked down at the bustling colony. Humans and Kithra worked side by side building new structures. Children of both species played together in the education center. Scientists from multiple worlds studied in the research facilities. "Proud," Jake said, "but also worried. This only works because we treat the Kithara as equals, not as tools or weapons. If other colonies forget that, people will get hurt." A commotion outside caught their attention. Titan was approaching the colony with a group of strangers, Kithara from distant territories who had come to see the legendary human pack leader for themselves. Jake walked outside to greet them. Rex, Luna, and Scout immediately flanked him, showing the visiting Kithara that this human was under their protection. Titan introduced the visitors using the complex Kithara communication system. Each visitor represented a different pack from across the continent. They had come because stories of the Human-Kithara alliance had spread throughout their species. One visitor, an elderly female with silver-streaked fur, approached Jake carefully. She made questioning sounds that Titan translated. "She wants to know if humans can teach other species to live with Kithara," Lisa said, using the translation software she had developed. Jake looked at the elderly Kithara and spoke slowly so the translator could keep up. "We don't teach anyone to live with Kithara. We learn to live with each other." The elderly female considered this answer for a long time. Then she made a decision. She called to her pack, and 6 young Kithara came forward. She was offering to let Jake train her cubs. "I can't take them," Jake said. "They belong with their family. But I can teach your pack how to work with the human families who want to join us." What followed was the largest expansion in Haven's Rest history. The elderly female's pack brought news of the human colony to other Kithara groups across the planet. Within months, dozens of packs were requesting contact with human settlers. The colony grew from 200 humans to over 1,000. Each human family was paired with a Kithara pack, and together they explored regions of the planet that had been too dangerous for any single species to survive. Jake found himself becoming something he had never expected: a diplomat. He spent his days mediating between different packs, helping resolve conflicts, and establishing the rules that allowed multiple species to live together peacefully. The Galactic Consortium has officially recognized Haven's Rest as a successful, multi-species colony, Admiral Cross announced during her 3rd visit to the settlement. "They want to use your model for establishing colonies in other dangerous regions of the galaxy." "What about Director Kelnash?" Jake asked. "Is he still worried about humans building armies of predators?" Admiral Cross smiled. "After seeing what you've accomplished here, even Kel Nash has changed his mind. He's recommended that humans be given priority assignments for exploring planets with dangerous wildlife." That evening, Jake sat with Rex, Luna, and Scout watching the sunset over Haven's Rest. The 3 Kithara were middle-aged now, with their own cubs playing nearby. They had become leaders in their own right, teaching young Kithara how to work with humans and protect the colony. A group of consortium observers walked past, taking notes on everything they saw. One of them, a nervous-looking Zenthari, kept staring at Rex. "Are you certain that creature is safe to be around?" the observer asked Jake. Rex heard the question and turned to look at the observer. Instead of growling or showing aggression, Rex made a sound that was almost like laughter. Then he gently picked up one of his cubs and carried it over to show the observer how beautiful it was. "He's not just safe," Jake said. "He's family." As the observers walked away, chattering excitedly about what they had witnessed, Rex came back to sit beside Jake. The massive predator leaned against his human friend and made the contented purring sound that meant happiness and security. Luna and Scout joined them, and soon Jake was surrounded by 800 pounds of apex predators who just wanted to spend time with their pack leader. A young consortium officer approached the group nervously. "Dr. Morrison, I have orders to ask you about colony security. How do you maintain control over these predators?" Jake looked at the officer, then at his three friends who were now grooming each other and watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "I don't control them," Jake said. When that Zenthari scientist asked if Rex was dangerous, Rex could have gotten angry. Instead, he showed off his cub because he's proud of his family, and he wanted to share that pride. The officer looked confused. "But they snap their jaws when we give them orders." Jake smiled. "They're not being disobedient. They're only guarding me." As if to prove his point, Scout made a soft warning sound. A group of wild Kythera was approaching from the forest. Rex and Luna immediately stood and positioned themselves between Jake and the approaching strangers. But instead of attacking, the three friends made welcoming sounds. The wild Kythera were carrying a human child who had wandered away from the colony. They had found her, kept her safe, and brought her home. Jake stood up and walked toward the wild Kythera, with Rex, Luna, and Scout beside him. The child saw Jake and ran to him, babbling about her adventure with the big puppies who had shared their dinner with her. As Jake carried the child back to her worried parents, the wild Kythera followed. By morning, they had decided to join the colony permanently. Haven's Rest continued to grow, one friendship at a time. The galaxy watched and learned that the most dangerous predators could become the most loyal guardians, and that humans had a gift for turning enemies into family. But Jake knew the real secret wasn't special to humans at all. It was simple respect, patience, and the willingness to see intelligence and goodness in unexpected places. As Rex, Luna, and Scout settled down to sleep around Jake's home, their own cubs playing in the yard and their pack family scattered throughout the colony, Jake reflected on how far they had all come. From 3 abandoned cubs who snapped their jaws at strangers to a thriving community where 2 species had learned to build something better together. The predator cubs still snapped their jaws sometimes, but only when someone threatened their human friends. And Jake still grinned when it happened, because he knew they were only guarding the family they had chosen.